Welcome back to the deep dive. We're your shortcut to getting really informed. Today we're diving into something really core to AWS, storing your data. Specifically, Amazon Elastic Block Store, EBS, and Instance Store. If you're building in the cloud, you need to get these right.
Absolutely. And that's our mission today, really, to break down what EBS and Instant Store actually are and why AWS created them in the first place. What problems do they solve? But most importantly, we'll figure out when you should use each one. Getting this wrong can cause some real headaches down the line.
Okay, good. Let's start with the basics then. Unpack EBS for us. What is it?
Okay, so EBS. Think of it as a highly scalable, persistent virtual hard drive for your EC2 instances. It's block storage, so it works like a traditional hard drive, organizing data in blocks. Great for operating systems, databases, that kind of thing.
Okay, like a virtual disk.
Exactly. But the key thing, the really crucial part, is that it's independent of the EC2 instance itself.
Independent how?
Meaning, your data on an EBS volume stays there. Even if you stop the instance, even if you terminate it, the data persists.
Got it. Persistent virtual drive. So how does Instant Store contrast with that? What's its story?
Right. Instant Store is quite different. It's temporary block storage. And it's physically attached, like directly connected to the host machine that's running your EC2 instance.
Ah, so local to the machine.
Precisely. You'll find it included with certain instance types. You might see D in the name, like C5D or M5D. But here's the big watch out. The data on an instance store, it vanishes. It's gone if that instance stops, terminates, or if the underlying hardware fails. It's ephemeral.
Gone. Okay, that's a massive difference. So persistence versus temporary. Now, thinking back, before we had these clear options, what were the challenges? What problems were people facing that led to EBS and Instance Store?
Oh, it was definitely trickier. If you were running on-premises, your local server disks, well, if the server died, often your data died with it. Simple as that. Traditional network storage like SANs or NAS. They existed, sure, but could be complex, sometimes slow for certain workloads, and definitely expensive.
And backups. Don't get me started on backups back then.
Exactly. Backups were often manual, slow. Tape backups were common. Trying to restore data could take hours, even days sometimes. It wasn't agile.
Yeah, I remember those days. So EBS came along and tackled that persistence issue head on.
Precisely. EBS gave you that reliable, persistent storage needed for critical things, databases, important application data, stuff that had to survive instance restarts. Plus, it brought scalability. You could resize volumes easily. And backups, snapshots to S3. Way faster, way more reliable than tape.
Okay, so EBS solved the persistence and backup problem. What about Instant Store? What gap did that fill?
Instant Store addressed a different need. Ultra-low latency, really high performance, temporary storage, sometimes network storage like EBS, even the fast types, just couldn't provide the raw speed needed for things like, say, intense caching or big data processing scratch space.
Stuff where speed is everything and the data doesn't need to live forever.
Exactly. And since it's included with the instance, it can be cost-effective for those specific use cases too.
Makes sense. Let's dig into how they work a bit more. You mentioned flexibility with EBS.
Yeah, absolutely. With EBS, you create a volume. You choose the type like general purpose SSD, GP3 usually, for a good balance, or maybe a provisioned IOPS, SSD, IO2 Block Express. If you need guaranteed high performance for like a demanding database, then you just attach to your EC2 instance and your data lives on. It's designed for 99.999% durability, which is huge.
And you mentioned snapshots and encryption.
Right. You can take point-in-time snapshots, basically backups stored in S3. Very reliable. And you can encrypt the volumes easily using AWS Key Management Service, KMS, for security. Lots of control.
Okay, clear. And Instant Store operationally, simply, but with that big catch.
Much simpler in setup, yeah. It's tied to specific EC2 instance types. When you launch one of those instances, the instance store is just there, ready to go. It gives you direct access to the underlying hardware, often NVMe SSDs these days, which means very low latency and high IOPS input-output operations per second. Super fast.
Like a scratch disk built in?
Exactly like a scratch disk. But always remember that temporary nature. Data loss on instance stop, termination, or hardware failure is expected behavior. It's not durable storage.
Right. So this brings us to the crucial question for anyone listening. When do you pick which one?
Okay, this is key. Use EBS when your data absolutely must persist. Think databases, customer records, application files, operating systems, file systems, anything you can't afford to lose if the instance restarts.
Standard applications, basically.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Also, use EBS if you need reliable backups via snapshots, or if you require encryption at rest or the ability to resize storage later.
And instant store. When does that make sense, given the risk?
You use Instant Store only when you need that extreme low latency and high IOPS for temporary data. Things like caches, web server session data, maybe buffers. Scratch space for large computations or data processing where the source data lives elsewhere and can be reprocessed. The application must be designed to handle the fact that this data can disappear at any moment. Data loss has to be acceptable.
So really understanding if your data is truly temporary or not is the deciding factor.
That's the core of it, yes. Don't use Instant Store just because it seems faster if the data actually needs to stick around. That's a common pitfall. EBS is getting really fast too, especially with types like GP3 and IO2.
Okay, let's recap quickly. EBS. Think persistent, durable, scalable, your go-to for most critical data. Instant store. Think temporary, blazing fast for specific high-performance scratch needs where data loss is okay.
Nailed it. And this really brings up an interesting point to consider. How might truly identifying the persistence needs versus the temporary needs of the data within your own projects?
Yeah.
How might that fundamentally change the way you design your cloud architecture from the start?
That's a great question. Really thinking about the nature of your data, something definitely worth mulling over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep that curiosity going.